Welcome to Here's How We Get There. It's the daily show filled with conversations about business and mental health in a down-to-earth style with real-world language. Now let's dive in with your co-hosts, Kenneth Shark-Kinney and Trey Tucker.
All right, if you're not living under a rock, by now you know that the college football playoff matchups have been announced. And the biggest news is Florida State has been left out. Jordan Travis, their quarterback, being injured, being the main factor, but you probably know all the details. So let's dive into the reaction. This is pretty unprecedented. So, Shark, what's your take?
So I think they got the right four teams. And if you look at, this again, we've heard this for years. Strength of schedule matters. Alabama had the fifth strongest strength of schedule, and Florida State had the 55th in the country. That if anything, that says a little bit about the ACC, because when you look at Clemson and everything else, but it really, when you look at the quality of teams, and Florida State's going to find out when they play Georgia, they're going to find out, they're going to get exactly what they
Yes.
they wanted, a matchup against a number one, and Georgia's going to pummel them.
Right.
Georgia's going to be mad. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Mike Norvell and how he tries to regroup his team, because that's going to break the kids' hearts. And I feel bad for them because they were amazing, but they're not the same team. And if you look at if these four teams played, if any of the four teams played Florida State right now, they would all beat them. And so I think when I listened to Boo Corrigan, the head of the CFP selection committee, talk on ESPN this morning, I mean, he laid it out, and I'm a little bit of an SEC homer, but I don't see how you don't have a team that plays the level of competition like Alabama does.
Yeah.
And the way they silence Georgia, it's going to be an amazing year. I actually, I don't question Texas, but between Texas and Alabama, I want to see that matchup in the final game. So Michigan, which has had its own news this year, is playing Alabama, and Texas is playing Washington, and it could be a heck of a matchup. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with all that. And I'll add, this is probably going to speed up the death of the ACC, because really all you have in the ACC is Clemson and Florida State. You could argue Miami, but I don't know about that. But I mean, this will hasten the idea that we got to get out of the ACC, because we just got snubbed by all the teams that are either now in the SEC and the Big Ten or are going to be next year. And it's a clear message that the ACC is just done.
Well, and they didn't even recruit to the ACC. The new teams coming in aren't necessarily juggernauts.
Yeah, exactly. So they know they're done. The other thing that FSU wants to conveniently not bring up is that the playoff committee for years has had an injury clause in their whole bylaws of how they choose these teams. So they were everybody knew this was part of the deal. The injury clause was there. Everybody, whether they agree with it or not, everybody voted it in, and it was there. It's not like the committee just made up a rule that had never existed before. So they're a victim of their own system that they agreed to be in by saying, hey, you can't leave us out because of an injury. Well, actually, they can, because that was actually a part of the clause in there. Also, little poetic justice. FSU is the victim of the ACC literally preventing there being a 12-team playoff this year. Because if you remember, during last offseason, most of the leagues wanted there to be a 12-team playoff this year, and the ACC said no. So now they got not only what they wanted back then, but they get to pay the piper for what they thought they wanted. But I kind of look out a little bigger picture here. This is actually a lesson in leadership, because when you're a leader, whether it's on the committee, or if you're running a business, or if you're coaching a team, whatever, no matter what decision you make, there are going to be people that are pissed off, fire angry at you. And there are going to be plenty of facts and logical arguments that they can make to disagree with you. And some of their arguments might be correct, but you still have to make what you think is the best decision among probably a lot of good decisions. So I tip my cap to these people on these committees, because they know they're going to get flooded with calls and emails and people on the street. No matter who they left out, that was going to happen to them. So lesson in leadership there.
Yeah, well, thanks for being a homer, for bringing up a good lesson. So now I got to come up with one too. I think whenever you make the right decision, it's always right. And they made the right decision. To your point, they're going to get a lot of nasty grams and emails and Lord knows what. But you know what? If I were to sit and look face to face with a 350-pound lineman from Florida State right now, I would tell him he's absolutely wrong, and then I would tell him that Trey Tucker said that. But I think if they want to shut everybody up, and they can win a huge moral argument, is let's see Florida State go in and try to beat Georgia. They do that, I'll take it all back, and so will most people. They'll think they got ignored. But when you're on your third string quarterback, it's a different. I mean, it's not even a different team. This is like the old Jamie Foxx Al Pacino movie, where it's a third string quarterback comes in, and let's see him make it happen. It's going to be really interesting to see. But let me put it this way: go back to the 4 games that we do have. It's some amazing games. So Trey, give me your picks on the first 2 games: Michigan versus Alabama. Who do you have?
I'm going Alabama, and I don't know if you saw the reaction of the whole team when they saw that Bama was going to be their opponent. There was like a fear that went over the room. So I'm definitely picking Bama for that one. How about you?
I'm definitely picking Bama. Roll Tide. One, they have something to prove still, and they played a heck of a game against Georgia. And Georgia's nothing. I mean, I don't think Michigan may be number 1 right now in the rankings, but they're not better than Georgia. No offense. And then we're going to go to Washington and Texas. What do you think?
Texas's linemen are just going to blow Washington off the ball in both directions, offensively and defensively. Like Washington has great skill positions, but when you look at their offensive line and defensive line, they look like tight ends on the O-line and linebackers on the D-line, and that's just not going to hold up against Texas, who has a lot of 5-stars on both sides of those lines.
All I get to say is hook 'em horns, and then that takes us to the final game: Alabama versus the Texas Longhorns. Who do you have?
The rematch. I mean, you don't beat Saban twice in one season. I think he figured out a way to get it done.
I would agree with that. And if any of our picks are wrong, then I will go in and edit this video and replace it later.
ChatGPT, here we come.
Yeah. So roll Tide.
Thank you for joining Shark and Trey on the Here's How We Get There show. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the show, and visit here'showwegetthere.com. That's here'showwegetthere.com.